The NanoFoamer Pro by Subminimal was a trailblazer among the independent milk frothers that create latte art ready milk foam. This is the second generation, and we're pretty much on the milk frothing kick. They excite us because they froth milk independently of the machine or even the brew. And why this one's particularly interesting, you'll discover in this video. We're here with the NanoFoamer Pro 2 from Subminimal, and this is truly, I'd say, the trailblazer, or the one that essentially set the standard, the predecessor. This one inspired others and essentially opened up a whole new field. And since we recently, tested a standalone milk frother independent of the espresso machine, now this NanoFoamer is here on the table, designed specifically for creating latte art and, more importantly, frothing milk to achieve that perfect latte art. Independent of the espresso machine, because there are more and more espresso machines on the market, and for quite some time now, many of them don't include a milk frothing feature. And of course, there are still flexible espresso makers like the Flair or the 9-bar or whatever else is out there. And now it's been with you for a while, and I have to admit, I always heard these excited shouts of joy coming from your place. I thought, what's going on there? And all Michelle did was froth some milk. And most importantly, we can already say at the start, you were really impressed by the alternative milk.
Yes, I was genuinely impressed because it demonstrated an incredibly high level of reproducibility. I was truly amazed. And my relationship with Milk Foamer began because they were simply standing on my table. That Benjamin just ordered some saying, give it a try, make a latte with it, and that was basically it. And this relationship was truly one of a kind. It was marked by numerous successful attempts, you could absolutely say, but it still requires a bit of guidance to keep things moving smoothly. So I think at the start, we can definitely say absolutely doable, awesome milk foam, no bubbles in it, nothing. I've never noticed a single bubble except when I've shaken it just a bit too much. Great for milk alternatives too. But what's always been true for the things I've tested so far is that every amount of liquid and every type of milk you use requires its own little recipe. It's like slightly tweaking the settings to achieve the perfect result every time. It's not rocket science, but you do need to kind of feel your way into it. However, the reproducibility afterward is good to very good. And so far, when it comes to alternative milk, it's been nearly perfect for me.
Michael, totally fascinating. You've got the recipe and can rely on it. And now we can confidently confirm for the same type of milk, we were exactly on point. Of course, it could be, especially with, let's say, organic milk. A change in feed or similar factors can then alter things a bit again. We notice that in our daily coffee routine, especially since we get the milk directly from the farmer. But we definitely notice changes throughout the year. Naturally, you'd notice those here as well. But otherwise, if you have the milk and the recipe, then you can froth the milk with it. We'll do that right away, of course. That's the idea. But first, a quick word about how it works. There's not much to it, really. Just these little magnetic things in 3 colors. For different
quantities or various types of milk, as well as different kinds of foam we can produce, adjust, and customize with precision and efficiency. At first, that was a bit strange to me because I thought, okay, what exactly is this thing? Where does it go and how does it fit into the whole process? But everything is clearly explained in the manual. You have. Actually, no, not just actually. You've got 3 different adjustment options available. 3 parameters. If I compare it to espresso, I have the time factor, in and out, and with that I can experiment and tweak things a bit more freely. And when these 3 parameters align perfectly, the result is delicious. The comparison to espresso fits relatively well. So I have the slow setting. Then I have the medium setting here, and finally I have the fast setting.
And they have wings that stick out to varying lengths, guiding the milk as it spins and froths smoothly, flowing past them effortlessly. And that, in turn, creates a different effect on the foam as well as on the thickness.
Exactly. Essentially, for me, as it's also clearly stated in the manual, I've exclusively used the black one.
Since I just held it from the outside, you naturally secure it on the inside here. Yeah. You take it and place it in there like this. No, this is the way you position it in there.
That's how you place it in. There's this marking that's pretty clear, all the way to the bottom. Just stick it in like that, and done.
And then it stays there, it doesn't come off. So that's one thing, but we'll explain it in more detail in a moment. Secondly, of course, the thing has to go on top.
Exactly, the lid has to go on because this spinner operates by utilizing the power of magnetic forces. So the movement actually comes from the outside. There's no mechanism here, just a simple shift in position. We'll get to that in a moment. And the lid definitely needs to be on here. Once it's placed on, maybe don't do it on the scale or so, if you still need to weigh the milk. And then it works perfectly.
How long does it take for the thing?
In the quickest possible scenario, when you're using alternative milk products kept at room temperature, it takes 1 minute and 25 seconds.
Now you mean room temperature.
Yes, just getting there.
Okay, that's for the fridge because that's the standard case. Most of us keep fresh milk in the fridge.
Exactly. If you're using cow's milk, 130 milliliters is the minimum amount for a cup. It's really just enough if you've got a 150 milliliter cup, so you can enjoy a proper, nice coffee to start your day. An intense cappuccino, then you'll have roughly 1 minute 45 seconds.
That's fairly quick-paced.
That's relatively quick. It's truly such a great time.
So, I need to think for just a quick moment. We had espresso machines that took a full 110 seconds just for frothing the milk. They still need heating up and all that. That already puts us in a pretty competitive spot.
Totally, absolutely. Let's dive back into the parameters.
To the wings.
Into the wings, but also into the other parameters. We still have 2 more. If you're looking to froth cow's milk, I typically suggest going with the black one for the best results. Perhaps when dealing with very large quantities, filling it right up to the maximum line, then go for the blue one. That's the next level up.
Max. Blue. Up.
Maximum is 220 grams. So, on the level. And the third level, the green one, turned out to be absolutely ideal and perfect for our oat drink, for gutch. Absolutely gigantic. There was too little foam. It was way too liquid. So for the 2 I tried with oat drink, I'd say you really need to experiment and do a bit more testing. I'd typically just start with that. And if there's way too much foam, maybe fine tune it using the program levels rather than going the other way around. I think that's the most suitable one. So let's move on to the second parameter, because then we come to the pot. It heats up with continuous stirring, powered by this built-in spinner, and you can adjust the duration of how long it stays in turbo mode. This ensures everything gets evenly heated and thoroughly mixed for precise results. It's at around 30-35 degrees. It gives it a real boost, and that can range from just 1 or 2 seconds at the lowest setting all the way up to 20 seconds. So really long. Add foam. That means with these levels, 1, the least amount of foam, 4 point, let's say on the latte art level, already more, depending on the fill level then. 5 is set at 20 seconds, which is already quite a lot. And 0 is specifically meant for cold milk foam. So with these settings, you can adjust the second factor. As an example, you take a small amount. 130 milliliters, you grab. The milk frother, insert it once, and just like that, quick and simple, it's all ready to go. I'd go with level 2 for this one because I'm aiming for a bit of foam, but I don't want it to be too much or overdone. And I've discovered that for our cow's milk, organic UHT cow's milk, setting it to level 2 consistently achieves the ideal latte art ready milk foam texture. The more volume you pour in, the higher you'll need to set the level every single time, always. You can take this as a general rule. I then created an intermediate step somewhere between 170 and 180 milliliters, which I poured in right in the middle. And then I was often at level 3 to level 4. With a full volume of 220 milliliters, I would typically end up at level 4.
But did you stick with the black one?
I decided to stick with the black one.
The higher the milk quantity, the more black. With a lower milk quantity, maybe you could work with the blue one. Opposite way?
The other way around. The higher the milk quantity, the more foam I need to generate, the more I end up even at level 5, where 5 is already almost brushing against that overly frothy boundary, nudging into that tolerance zone. That I might then actually opt for a blue one, but switch back to level 2 again. So there are quite a few adjustment options available, and you can simply give it a try and see. For me personally, I didn't make 1,000 attempts. I tried around 2, 3, 4 times, and then I was completely in the zone and fully focused. And the others weren't. They weren't completely off. One time it turned out a bit too foamy, and another time a bit too runny. But I think I would also put that into perspective, since I probably have a certain sense for the perfect shaving foam, and I want it to be just right because, well, I just do a lot of foaming.
These recipes, the things you've tried out, dear Michelle, we've, of course, made a note of. You'll find it all in our blog post linked down below. I'll take this moment to briefly touch on 3 other topics. First, we've tested a lot of old machines, old being relative, and now want to pass them on to others. We've listed all of them on our website. So, if you're considering one of our test machines for yourself, take a look. I've linked it down here. There you'll find all our used test machines, occasions. They've been in operation with us for a few months and then actually ready for you. We also still have a few spots remaining for the upcoming coffee farm training. I'll link it down below too. Lastly, also exciting, it's next summer, but maybe you're already planning your vacation. We are hosting Barista Summer School Weeks this summer. You'll find all the details and more by following the link below. Michel, that was practically advertising in character. Right in the middle of the video, but now it's just continuing.
Exactly, because there's a third stage where I feel like it doesn't change that much, but it still makes a noticeable and subtle difference. So I think if you're in this period, you know, that area of being a bit too thin, but I want to do latte art and I want to create a defined latte art like a swan or something, really fine lines, and I want a bit more foam there, but taking it just one step further would already be way too much foam then. Can you also adjust the position of this knob? You can easily click it into place by gently turning the small black adjustment wheel that's positioned right up here at the top. And it always shifts slightly further down or further up. Personally, I think the difference is really quite minimal and barely noticeable. But what I've observed, and it's also explicitly mentioned in the manual, is that if you're positioned too far up, this magnetic connection to the rotary wheel is no longer present. And it makes this thing kind of a relatively weird noise, almost like a loud vibration pump, really like a rattling sound. And then you're outside of that particular range. And if you hear it because you've been adjusting it, just turn it slightly lower again. That's what it says in the manual, whether it makes sense or not. I would have made the area smaller to ensure that couldn't happen at all. But you can always adjust it again. In my case, I had it set up, and you'll notice it with something like a specific kind of marked line, like an engraved line. I didn't have it set to the very top because then it would end up in that specific spot where it doesn't turn smoothly, but instead I adjusted it 1 or 2 steps further down into the pot. I wouldn't go to the very bottom where it's really deep in the pot because that would produce less milk foam again.
My dear Michelle, we've talked a lot. Shall we quickly make a cappuccino?
Yes, I would agree. I'd go with cow's milk, and honestly, I think that's a really cool point to highlight. I can measure out 130 milliliters of milk. That's about 1 cup.
And it's really good. But I have to ask you, can you properly do 2 cups? It's going to be a bit tight.
The manual explicitly states, maximum up to the fill line, no more. How much do you have then? 220th. And that, for anyone who can do the math, 150 milliliter cups, a bit of milk foam with that, 20 grams in the cup, or 25, let's say, we're at 50. And then the 220, maybe up to 240, it's razor thin. Our Academy mugs are 160, 170, that's not quite enough. I also tried a 250 once. In my tests, nothing reached the lid or spilled over, so it worked perfectly fine without any mess or issues at all there. We can't recommend that though, because the manual clearly states and strongly emphasizes that you should never exceed the maximum fill level.
Yeah, probably in the worst case, it might get a bit messy, but if the foam is just right and all, nothing's really going to happen. It's not like it's going to explode.
At 250, it just perfectly fit our cups. No problem at all, yeah?
Great. We'll just make 1 cup now. We've been drinking cappuccino all morning long. That's plenty if we share it in a brotherly way between the both of us.
All right, do it. Mundram. So, and now he's turning just a little bit more. And just now at Esso, the slowest time I've ever measured was 3 minutes with cold milk at 250 milliliters. So above the maximum, but that's really quite a lot for one portion, I'd say, at just under 2 minutes or so. And of course, if you're using tempered products, meaning they're already at room temperature, then it's naturally quicker since the device actively measures the temperature. I'll get to that in a moment. What's really important here, and we're seeing it right now, is that whenever OK is displayed, I need to interrupt it immediately.
Where are you then?
Then I am, that's where I'm coming from. You're not that much of a spoiler yet.
That was quick.
Yeah, you're really close, I'd say, with the content. I was at just under 2 minutes, maybe a little less than that. I think so. Yeah, probably around that mark. Or maybe just over 2 minutes, a little bit rounded up.
So we're seeing here, Michel is having fun foaming. We've foamed a lot, as you can see. It's simply something that's possible, and it's a lot of fun. Now we've got a really beautiful tulip here once again. Super shiny. Super unified foam, no blabbing at all, a lovely rich creaminess.
Take a sip.
Very compact, dense, and at the same time, it has a lot of sweetness. It didn't get too warm. Instead, it's the temperature that I really enjoy. At higher temperatures, it tends to lean a bit dry, losing some of the sweetness. There's none of that here right now. That's actually really cool. And it's also not to be underestimated that, of course, absolutely no moisture is being absorbed, but it actually retains this creamy foam without getting diluted by any liquid, which is always what happens when foaming with a boiler.
Yes, so the temperature is measured. And really, I mean, the tolerance is 1 to, let's say, in the absolute most extreme case among all the measurements I've taken, it's still within a very narrow range, which is quite impressive. 1 or 2 degrees, and the first beep she makes, that OK signal that then clicks on, that 60 degrees, which is pretty consistent across all the tests. And that was, in the worst case scenario, 59,230. So within that range, and in the hot case with the minimum fill amount, it's just slightly above 61 degrees. But we're exactly at the point where we're hitting the cappuccino threshold, because I never foam above 60 degrees. Never. And then I'd really like to have the option to turn that feature off, so it continues foaming until it reaches 70 and then automatically stops on its own. I'd love to be able to program that and say, hey, you already know when it reaches 60, just stop, and I either have to take it away right then, or I just tap the screen once. That's all there is to it. But when it beeps, it was always perfectly on point.
Nice. And we tried that with milk, we tested it with cow's milk, and we also experimented with alternative milk options. There as well, super doable. Same story with the temperature.
Same story with the temperature, but there's an additional factor here that I genuinely find to be really fantastic. Many milk alternatives are UHT, meaning they are highly heated, so they don't require refrigeration to store. That means maybe you often have your oat milk. I haven't tried soy drink or almond milk myself yet, but typically, you don't always need to store it in the fridge, even for extended periods of time at all, really. At home, I would always recommend pasteurized cow's milk for you, because it simply harmonizes much better with the cappuccino. But with oat milk, for example, that's not always the case. And I was super curious, what about room temperature? Our Gutsch oat milk, I had it at around 20 degrees. That was in our small room at the back of the academy where we usually work. It's a bit cooler than the main room, and once you step inside, he has no trouble at all frothing a warm milk or any warm beverage perfectly. It's just the ideal setting for achieving that smooth, creamy texture, consistently and effortlessly every single time. It works flawlessly and it's tempting, but it never goes overboard or pushes things too far. So I never had that beep at over 61 degrees. So and yeah, cool. And then really when you check out alternatives, it's also clearly mentioned in the description, by the way.
We naturally go for green.
We pick green.
Michel, this is really fun, isn't it, you know?
Yes. And when it comes to alternative milk, you're definitely operating at the more advanced stages, I'd say, you know? So 2 was typically too runny, or in my test, it often turned out too runny. I usually found myself around 3 to 4. And with a full pot, even though I was a bit startled by it because there are these specific boost levels where you can actually add quite a significant amount of foam to it. And at level 4, it's 8 seconds, and at level 5, it's 20. And for me, it was like, wow, that's really something quite intense, actually. A huge step up so that the oats then push through at 220, so at the absolute limit. I was a bit worried that there would then be way too much foam, but it was spot on. It was really fun, I must say, and everything worked out perfectly.
These are definitely strengths of the little device. I also think the aesthetics certainly speak for themselves. I just think it looks really nice, fits perfectly, especially if you have a dark espresso machine. Then it's already aesthetically very pleasing, and the build quality is relatively high-end.
Yes, everything feels very solid. I've used it extensively with many foaming processes in a row, and it held up perfectly without any issues. It never got warm or anything like that at all.
Cleaning is a bit of a weakness for me.
Yeah. You really have to take it out, you have to rinse it. You can also disassemble this wheel and then take this lower part apart like this for a thorough cleaning. I only took it apart for the first time right at the very end, after I'd been using it for quite a while.
Not see. Barnful?
So that was really, I would have said, somewhere around 40 to 50. That's when I finally finished up and concluded my first day of working on it. And inside, there was absolutely nothing, since I always made sure to rinse it out right away with hot water. And then it was truly clean too.
Can't that go in the dishwasher? Because then, of course, at the bottom there's the small heating unit, the warming area, and so forth. And yeah, that's why it's more interesting. Does it also include batteries as well?
No, if you take it away right now, it still has enough power for the display to react.
Can it be done without? No. Rinse it first. Don't put it in the machine. And don't use any scratchy cloths or sponges. Just rinse it out once. Carefully use a microfiber cloth or something like that. And then it's clean, and of course the magnets can be easily taken out, and that's all there is to it. That's, I would say, the most important thing about the NanoFoamer Pro 2. Yes, but that wasn't really attached properly just now.
I have to clean up anyway, so we'll just leave it like this. Exactly, it wasn't attached properly. I was honestly a bit baffled because I thought to myself, now the home scenario is pretty much set in my specific situation. It just caught me off guard. So let's take my example. I have an espresso machine at home. I have a steam function, so I have a steam boiler. Everything is everything capped. But then I imagined myself like I'm on vacation, traveling by car, maybe staying at a campsite or somewhere like that. And I have some manual brewing device. There's a huge variety out there. And I just placed this thing next to it, for around 150, 160 euros, dollars, or Swiss francs. It's just one of those options, really. Nothing too complicated or fancy.
Everything kind of the same. And I just didn't look, honestly, really just like that,
In a small everyday space at home with an espresso machine, I could totally see that working too.
Yeah, or you have a mocha pot. It works for pretty much everything, in principle. And I think it's definitely an interesting product. I think we were just having a conversation recently about how there will be more espresso machines dedicated solely to making espresso. Because milk foam requires a second boiler. Saving on that allows us to build more cheaply. And of course, there are these compact machines available, like those from Sage and DeLonghi, among others. They are grinder, espresso brewer, milk frother. Then there are machines that are boilers and milk frothers. And then there are already some machines today, and more interesting machines will continue to come onto the market, which are solely espresso machines. And I find that consistent because you can decide what's the best brewer, what's the best espresso machine, what's the best frother out there, what's the best grinder to use.
Best grinder, I was going to say.
You can deliberately choose it, replace specific components as needed, and ideally end up saving more money throughout the entire process. Those are our thoughts on the NanoFoamer Pro. 2 from Subminimal. You can find it available in a variety of locations online and in stores. That could be a product. Quite interesting. Let's consider it. Whether that's an option for us, yes.
Is for me, I'll put a check mark next to it, like a positive one,
Yeah. Definitely can.
For that, I conduct bark tests.
Definitely recommended. It's a cool product. That's it for today. That's all from us for now, folks. Take care of yourself. Enjoy a tasty cappuccino. Bye. See you soon.